talk more about cloud adoption, release validation challenges. A lot of our customers are going through this cloud journey, whether they've already implemented it and then going through the continuous delivery process, or they're thinking about moving to cloud from on-prem systems and looking at what are the things that they should be considering as part of this whole move to cloud. So we'll talk about based on our experiences working with a lot of customers, what are the things that you should be considering when you take this journey? We'll also talk about, especially for Oracle Cloud applications and the continuous delivery model that they have, which is a huge shift from how the on-prem applications has been so far and how customers should be looking at it. What are the options available from a testing standpoint or release validation standpoint? We'll then go to customer case study, a customer's journey towards this cloud migration, how they have looked at automation testing, challenges that they face, and the benefits that they started realizing after moving to automation testing. Then we'll spend a little bit of time on CloudTestr Platform and a small demo and the benefits that customers are realizing with CloudTestr Platform. We'll open it up for Q&A after that. So this is what we would be covering today as part of today's webinar. So we'll get started. In terms of when you decided to move to Oracle Cloud, there are certain things that you should be looking at from an adoption standpoint, challenges standpoint. There are three main areas that we look at. One is from business users and business analysts standpoint. When you're moving to cloud, what are the things that they should be considering? The second one is a change management, and the third one more from a quality assurance and technical standpoint. What are the things that you should be considering? So when we start with the business users, like you said, it's a huge paradigm shift for customers moving from on-prem to cloud. One of the things that you should be considering it, on-prem, you have a lot of flexibility into customizing your applications, but when it comes to cloud, 80% is going to be common across customers, but then you have about 20-25% that you could configure to your environment, personalize it to your implementation and things like that, which means in terms of from a business user standpoint, having the understanding of what are configurable, what are non-configurable components of cloud application would be an important aspect to determine what to test, what not to test, right? During implementation, obviously your business users still need to decide what to test during the UAT process, and post implementation you keep getting these continuous releases from the cloud provider. Then during that time, do you test? What should you test? Do you test everything? Do you test just the impacted changes? Do you test the integration? So all those decisions are something that have to be thought through as part of your cloud release validation when it happens. And sorry, is there a question? Okay, and
yeah. Go ahead, Lavanya.
Okay, and the other thing is new features that are coming in, right? As you move to cloud, one of the benefits that you get is you're getting continuous delivery and continuous innovation that is pushed towards you. Unlike on-prem, since you are on cloud, the cloud provider is going to continuously provide you the fixes, provide you enhancements, provide you new features. Then your business users are having to make decisions whether, hey, this new feature coming in, do I opt in? Do I opt out? When should I opt in? How does it benefit my business? All those decisions have to be made, and understanding these new features and adopting the new features is another thing that our customers are kind of looking and struggling with sometimes. The other main aspect, and this is one of the very important things that especially for customers who are just undertaking the journey, need to think about is the change management process, right? So whenever you're moving from on-prem to cloud, one of the biggest changes that you will be looking at is the whole change management process is going to be completely different than what you are used to. Because in on-prem, it's your infrastructure, it's your release cycles, you decide what goes in, to each release, when it goes in and things like that. You're in complete control on your change management process because everything is in your control. But when it comes to cloud, now you are handing over a lot of this responsibility to the cloud provider. When it comes to the infrastructure, it's the cloud provider's infrastructure. When it comes to the release cycles, they determine the release cycles. Though it's predictable, it's still determined by the cloud provider. And the third thing is what goes into each release. That is also determined by the cloud provider, right, in terms of the bug fixes, enhancements, features, and all. So you need to plan from a change management standpoint as to how do you handle a complete shift in this whole thing where you are not having control. I'll give you an example, right? So let's say that you go live and then you're taking these continuous delivery, continuous releases, and if it's determined that during that 2-week window that you get after you go live, you missed out testing certain things, or you missed out some integration you didn't test, and you started realizing that it's not working after it goes live. You really don't have rollback options. It's not backward compatible as such because it's not controlled by you, right? So planning for change management and release validation are two important shifts that our customers are having to make when they're undertaking the cloud journey because of these factors, right? So adopting to these new changes that are coming in so fast, and how do you make sure that you're not missing out on anything once it goes live, then you'll have to live with it for a little bit because you don't have control on the release management process. The third aspect is when it comes to the release validation and testing and technical challenges. One is determining what to test, what is coming in as fixes, what is coming in as enhancements, reviewing the release notes, understanding those changes, and determining what to test is one of the main considerations that you'll have to do. The second one is coming up with the right regression suite to mitigate any business risk, right? So like I said, once it goes in, it hits the production, and then you'll have to wait till issues are getting resolved. So how do you determine what to test? Do you just test the impacted things, or do you test the complete regression suite? What is the balance? Do you actually have resources to do complete regression suite because your users are tied up with other things that they need to take care of, right? So those decisions are becoming important to determine what to test and what not to test, and how much time do you have to do testing and things like that. The third aspect here is it's not only testing your functionality, but you also want to make sure that there are no process slowdowns or security breakdowns, right? So you want to make sure that your applications are working the same way even after patches are getting applied, and it's not slowing down. For example, if I take an example of hire an employee process, let's say that in patch 19A it was taking about a minute to execute the test, but 19B comes in and it's taking you almost 2 minutes to execute. That's a significant degradation in your process experience of your employees, right? So you want to make sure that you're also tracking the performance of the transaction, as well as more importantly, you're making sure that from a security standpoint, your employee is not getting access to your administrator screens, or your manager is not getting access to your administrator screens, and things like that. From a security standpoint, that's very important for you to check as well. So it's not just doing functional testing, but also checking the performance and security of the transactions also will be very important to consider as you're going through this journey. And last but not the least, integrations. Though you're moving to cloud, you still have to deal with a lot of your inbound onboard integrations. Your data is flowing from different systems, whether it's your internal systems or third-party systems that you're interfacing with. You want to make sure that it's not just your application that is working, but there are no impacts to your upstream, downstream systems. The integrations that you have is an important aspect as well to consider when you're doing release validation and the patches that you are taking continuously. So these are some of the things that we have seen our customers have to deal with when it comes to cloud adoption. Again, there are a lot of benefits of moving to cloud, but some of the things that knowing these things would be quite beneficial for you to be able to adopt to it more efficiently and take complete advantage of moving to cloud. Because obviously that's your first step towards your digital innovation and all. and it provides you tons of benefits in adding new features much faster and providing much more benefits to your customers. But keeping these in mind would be very beneficial for you to plan accordingly. So let's talk about Oracle Cloud Applications Continuous Delivery Model. I'm sure this is something that you started thinking about once you have undertaken the journey, or if you already are on cloud, then you're experiencing this continuous delivery model that provides you changes in much faster pace. You get quarterly releases of your fixes, enhancements, and new features. That means that you'll have to adopt to that, right? So what are the benefits of this model? The benefits of this model is obviously you have continuous innovation coming to you, so you can make decisions quickly on bringing in new features like chatbots or newsfeed or things that are going to be new for you that you don't have to think about, that the cloud provider is providing to you, so that you can opt in and leverage that. Same thing, there's more predictable timeline and schedule. So you know that you're going to get these every quarter. So you're able to do that much faster. And so you're able to prepare for it because it's a predictable schedule. You can prepare and plan for it. As long as you keep in mind all the things I've talked about in the previous slide, you can plan and prepare for it. Delivery of new features and modules are going to be coming in much faster. And also, if there are any bugs and fixes that you have found, you don't have to wait for months to get them fixed. Oracle provides them much faster now. They prioritize it, and you keep getting them in a much faster increments because they're doing quarterly releases now. I'll give you an example. For Oracle on-prem systems, all the patches that they have done so far versus what they have done with just the cloud, for all these years of on-prem versus what they just in 1 year, they've provided the same number of patches or more in just 1 year of cloud. So imagine the speed with which you're getting changes, right? So those are all the benefits that you're getting with cloud applications. But then with this comes new responsibilities from customer side that you should be thinking about. One is, you'll have to keep pace with the change because if you're not planning for it, and if you're not thinking about the things that I talked about in the previous slide, then what is happening is these changes are becoming more onerous on the customers because they're coming so fast. Every quarter, if you have to do validations, every quarter you have to determine how does that impact my systems. You're more often than not getting bogged down with testing versus actually taking advantage of the new features coming in. More often than not, customers are opting out of new features coming in because they are not mandatory and only focusing on the mandatory changes, and it's not taking advantage of cloud, right? So you'll need to plan for it so that you can keep pace with the change that is coming in. Plan for evaluating the new features coming in so that you can actually take advantage of how does it benefit my business, how does it benefit my employees, how can we get more operationally efficient by adopting these features. So you'll have to have plan to evaluate those things and plan for adoption of these new features. Otherwise, again, you're not taking advantage of the whole migration to cloud. The third thing that you should be considering is maintaining the continuity of the application, right? You want to make sure that things are still continuing to work as you have planned. When the patches are getting applied, you're not getting, things are not impacting your process flows and things like that, right? And another new responsibility is to continuously do the testing or release validation, right? Because every quarter comes in pretty fast. You'll have to plan your resources, you'll have to plan their work around the schedule, because once your test pods hit with the new release, you get 2 weeks. Whether you're going to validate it or not, it's still going to go into production at the end of the 2 weeks, right? So planning to do this continuous release validation would become a part of your process that you need to adopt to, whether it's release through resourcing or how you plan to do all this testing, right? So one of the biggest things we have noticed from a customer standpoint, once they have started undertaking this journey, is having the ability to continuously test and validate these releases. and the change management process. So those are the two main areas that we have noticed customers struggling once they have undertaken this journey. So what are the options available from a release validation standpoint, right? So there are three options that you can look at. One is you can test it manually. Obviously, that's going to be a time-consuming process. And from a coverage standpoint, if you're going to test it manually, especially after you go live, you're pretty much getting 2 weeks to do the testing, then identifying any issues as part of the testing, work with Oracle or work with your support partner to get those resolved, retest it. All that has to happen within a 2-week window, which means what is happening is more often than not, customers are deciding to pick and choose what they're testing based on the release notes that they're reading. And sometimes you're going to miss things. Sometimes you're only doing functional testing. You're not doing the integrations, or you're not checking your security or performance and things like that. And you kind of miss out things. And if as long as things are going well, it's great. The day you miss something, it's going to be a nightmare, right? So coverage is not comprehensive if you do it manually. The other one is, since you're doing it manually, you really don't have time to think about new features. So you're more often than not are opting out as a default, and then think about the new features when Oracle makes it mandatory that you have to adopt those features by a particular date. Then you're scrambling to adopt those features. So you're kind of losing the whole advantage of the cloud. The second option customers have is building their own automation using tools available in the market, whether it's open source tools like Selenium, or you can look at commercial tools in the market. But the things that you need to consider with this option is you'll have to think about licensing the product. For every tool that you have, you'll have to build a framework around it. You need to have skilled resources that can use this tool and continuously maintain it. And because every tool comes with its own different language and skill set that you need. And again, you'll have to maintenance is one of the biggest challenges that we've seen with the customers, right? So even though let's say that you decided to go forward with it, you take 3 to 6 months to get automation up and running, but then every time you get the release, you pretty much, your automation engineer is going to know the changes just when the test pod is updated, right? Which means by the time they figure out what are the test cases that need to be updated, that got impacted and executed, you don't have enough time, and more often than not, customers are kind of ending up with doing it manually. So maintenance has been a challenge, especially for Oracle Cloud applications. Even customers who have undertaken that route have faced a tremendous amount of challenges when it comes to maintenance of the automation suite. The third thing is subscribing to automated testing as a service, where you work with a partner as a service, where just like your cloud applications, that is software as a service, you can outsource this to a partner where you're only paying for the subscription and whatever you're consuming. You're not paying for resources, you're not paying for licenses, you're not paying for hardware or software costs. And that way it's kind of, you're just taking the responsibility from your business users and have them focus on what is business critical tasks, focus on the adoption of new features, and just have the release validation provided from an automation as a service. And you can, with automation in place, you don't have to pick and choose what to test. You can do complete regression testing. You don't have to miss out on things. You can do the whole end-to-end integrations, regression, and everything to give a complete peace of mind when you go into production that everything is working fine, and you don't have to worry about it once it goes into production. Every quarter this happens. So those are the three options that you have available, and you can make a decision based on what works well for your organization. So to sum it up, so when you're dealing with this continuous releases, continuous delivery, two things that you will be looking at, right? From a reliability standpoint, since you're getting the continuous upgrades, the change management is an important aspect you should consider. Performance is an important aspect you should consider. Security is an important aspect you should consider. Data privacy and making sure that the data is secure is another aspect you should be considered. From an assurance standpoint, you need to keep in mind that you're going to be having to do this release validations and testing every quarter. So planning for it planning for the continuous testing is important. Automation would definitely help you with this whole process, because automation gives you more coverage and you can have more peace of mind that you're covering all your key processes through automation and you're not missing out on things. Also, looking at cost-effective solution for automation is an important aspect of it you should consider, because your whole goal is to move to a system where you're not spending a ton of money on just doing release validation or testing. You want to do it effectively. You want to do it with less cost and quick turnaround, right? So some of these things you should be considering as part of your cloud release validation and cloud journey, continuous delivery journey that you're undertaken or you're planning to undertake. So let's go into customer case study. So this is one of the customer journey that I will talk about. This customer was on Oracle EBS on-prem systems for their HRIS systems, and they've decided to migrate to Oracle HCM Cloud. This customer is a global insurance brokerage and risk management services, and they have operations in 33 countries. And as part of their cloud strategy, they've decided to move to HCM Cloud, and they wanted to do it in 2 phases. They wanted to do phase 1 with core HR benefits compensation, and phase 2 with payroll, time and labor, absence system performance. While they started taking this journey, they've decided that they wanted to make automation a key aspect of their journey, their implementation and post-implementation, considering that based on their inputs that they got working with other customers, that they know that once the releases go in, you will not have a lot of time to do the testing. So they planned accordingly, and they've decided automation is a key aspect of their strategy, their testing strategy. So the way it worked was for phase 1, when they went live with different legislations, they had automation created for all the modules that they had in place, and these guys went live somewhere in November of last year. So automation was in place when they started taking the patches for phase 1, while simultaneously started working on implementing phase 2. So their team was focused more on phase 2 implementation and getting that up and running, while phase 1, whatever patches they were taking, initially they were taking monthly patches and then they moved to quarterly. All that was tested through automation. So they had a lot of peace of mind, because they don't have to worry about the continuous patches they were getting that needed to be tested. Once they started migrating to phase 2, they went live with phase 2 in April. Again, they had multiple legislations that they had to deal with. They had automation getting up and running as part of the implementation itself. So they went live in April. They took a quarterly patch in May. I believe that was 19B. And since they had automation in place, the 19B release was much more smoother, considering they just went live with a major rollout, including payroll. That was pretty challenging for them. So with automation in place, at least they were able to leverage all the release validation for that patch through automation, and were able to keep up with that small window that they had to do the validation for the whole phase 1, phase 2 applications as soon as they went live, right? So, and now everything is tested through automation. They have almost 1,100 plus test cases that have been automated. They have such a large number because of a lot of personalization that they've done, as well as a lot of legislations where they have implemented this, which means the testing kind of has to be done across all the legislations that they have in place. But from a benefit standpoint, after subscribing to automated subscription service, this customer is able to proactively do change impact analysis for these patches. They're able to do the automated release validation within 3 to 5 business days of applying this update by Oracle. It freed up a lot of their key personnel to focus on business critical tasks versus doing release validation, and it increased their test coverage. They're not just doing impacted testing, but they're testing everything. and they're able to now adopt the new features and functionality much faster because their focus is not on doing release validation and testing. So they're able to start taking advantage of the migration to cloud much better because of their focus now not being on this, right? So that's the customer journey that one of our customers had. We can answer more questions on that during the Q&A phase. So let's talk about the automated release validation, how we can do continuous testing and validation. So basically, just as I was talking about the whole paradigm shift from your on-prem to cloud applications, you have the same thing from a release validation and testing standpoint. You're moving from your traditional testing to continuous testing. So what I mean by that is, if you have to do everything manually, then it's kind of everything takes long time. This chart is kind of geared towards an implementation strategy, right? Let's say that you're implementing cloud applications. Then if everything has to be done manually, then you're configuring the applications, then you're doing SIT, and then you're doing UAT, and everything, we are finding these defects later in the life cycle because you're testing manually, you're just testing what you can, you're not, doing a complete regression. So finding these defects later in the life cycle is always going to be challenging, one, from cost standpoint. Second, it could delay your implementation timeline because you're finding a lot of issues when the business is doing the testing instead of early on in the life cycle. And the confidence would go down with your business users because, as is, it's a huge shift from what is happening. It's a new system that you're having to adopt to. But if you add a lot more stress in terms of finding a lot of issues later on in your implementation cycle, becomes a challenge. So even during implementation, you could actually look at continuously doing the testing from the beginning while you're configuring it so that your SIT is done through automation, UAT is done through automation. And then once you go live, everything is already automated, so you can leverage the same thing from a post-production standpoint as well and do continuous testing for your quarterly updates as well. So the benefits of moving to continuous testing approach is you have on-time releases, reduce cycle time, your code quality is going to be much better. There is no risk that you're undertaking. There'll be much higher confidence every time the releases are going in, and you don't have to worry about what's going in. And from a cost standpoint, anytime you're finding issues early on, imagine finding issues on day 1 or day 2 of your test board getting updated versus finding them on mid of second week, and then you're scrambling to get them resolved and work with Oracle and get and be ready for the production, right? So early identification of issues are going to save a lot of time and energy for you to make sure that your releases are going in much smoother. And also you can get immediate feedback, in terms of what is happening as soon as possible. So there are quite a few benefits of moving from your traditional testing approach to continuous testing through automation, both during implementation and post-implementation of your cloud applications. So we'll talk a little bit about the CloudTestr Platform. It's a proprietary platform that SuneraTech offers. It is an enterprise platform that supports across different types of applications, and we provide this as a service. It's a testing as a platform as a service delivery model, where you still get access to the platform while we will be configuring your automated scripts, maintaining them and executing them for you. You could still have access to the whole dashboards of the metrics that you have. You can download the test documentation. You can download the results documentation. You can do complete end-to-end testing, including integrations. We are both inbound, outbound, all types of integrations, whether they're SOA-based integrations, whether they're FTP-based integrations, SQL-based integrations, all different types of integrations you might have in place. We'll be able to test those. We also check performance of your transactions as well as role-based security, right? So it kind of encapsulates everything that you would be looking for from an as-a-service model, and you can have complete peace of mind. CloudTestr is hosted on Oracle Public Cloud Infrastructure. It's the same place where Oracle Cloud applications are hosted as well. It is a scriptless platform where we auto-generate the scripts. We don't really write any automated tests as such. We capture, configure, and then the platform auto-generates scripts. CloudTestr is the only platform that is able to automate and maintain the tests and execute the tests in a very short duration. We can actually get you up and running with automation within 4 to 6 weeks, and we can execute the tests within 3 to 5 business days of your test pod is getting updated. So from a return on investment standpoint, from increase in coverage and quality, you'll have quite a bit benefits of migrating to automation testing as a service through CloudTestr. For customers who are payroll customers, we also have payroll data validation tool. That is a self-service that we provide, where a customer can actually test before and after payroll data, before and after, whether it's payroll register report or payroll activity report. With the click of a button, you will be able to actually check before patch and after patch your payroll data, and all the variations that you can see at multiple levels, right? And that's something that we provide as a self-service tool as well for payroll customers. So let me do a quick demo of the platform so that you can get an idea. Like you said, it's just like your SaaS applications. It's hosted on cloud, same place as your Oracle Cloud applications are hosted. We set customers up and provide you access so that though we are doing the heavy lifting of automating, maintaining, and executing, you can in real time log into the platform, check the dashboards, take a look at the results. All that information is available to you at any point in time. So this is the dashboard view I was talking about. If you look at it, we have details of the test cases that have been automated, how many test cases are planned to be automated, how many have been completed, how many have been signed off, how many are in progress. So all that information you have at the dashboard level. You can also drill into details to see more information on, hey, well, I want to see how many core HR test cases are there. So you could just, filter it on core HR, check how many are in progress, how many have been completed, download the completed test case documentation. All that can be done from the dashboard view. You don't have to wait for any CloudTestr team members to tell you what the status is on automation. All that you can just log into the platform and check. Same thing with test case executions. You should be able to take a look at the test execution details. How many test cases are planned to be executed for a particular release, how many passed, how many failed, how many are yet to be executed. All that information you have available. Same thing with defects. You should be able to get the defect view as well here. You can also filter by releases. You can filter by, let's say that you have done some testing for 19B. You could just filter by 19B and you can take a look at what are the statistics associated, metrics associated with that particular release. So since it's on the cloud, you always have access to even the older releases. You can go back and take a look at the details of previous releases as well at any point in time to look at what was tested, how long it took to test, what is the status of it, the results files and all. A lot of customers use this even for auditing purposes, so that both internal and external audits, you should be able to just log into the platform and walk them through what has been tested for a particular release, what are the results, what passed, what failed. All that information would be available just by logging into the platform. I'm going to do a quick showcase one test case, how it looks like. So this is a hire an employee test case example that I'm showing you. So if you look at it, like you said, we capture, configure the automated tests in your environment. So this way, we are making sure that we are capturing your test cases, your implementation, your configurations, your personalizations. While we capture, configure, we are able to take screenshots as well, and multiple benefits of it. CloudTestr auto-generates test documentation. So this way, when we auto-generate the test documentation, you not only have the steps, you also have screens associated with it, so that it's quite easy to understand what is the test that is being performed And you can also use this documentation for training purposes. And another benefit is, since we are auto-generating the documentation, your documentation is never going to go stale, because since you're taking releases so frequently, obviously there are changes coming in, which means your test cases are changing and you are having to update your test cases as well. But more often than not, since you only have a limited amount of time to do the testing, the thing that gets missed is test cases getting updated with those changes. So the users know what they're testing, so they just test it and they'll just certify it, but they never update the test cases, which means after a period of time, you're kind of losing track of what all got changed in previous releases. And if a particular user leaves, then you're kind of behind an 8-ball understanding, okay, what all changed, what should we test, and things like that. So you're not going to have a problem with that here, because we are always updating and auto-generating the documentation. Your documentation is always up to date. From a training purposes, how our customers are using this is, let's say you have a new user join, then they could just share this documentation with them. Since you have a screenshot and the step that is clearly defined here, they could just learn on their own by just going through this documentation and not take up too much of your team's time in doing this. Same thing with results documentation. If you look at it here, we have the whole run history. We have details on when the test case got executed, how long it took to execute the test, where we executed it, whether it's passed or failed. And then same thing with results. You are able to take a look at the results with the details on overall status, how long it took to execute. If there are any failed steps, it's notified upfront here, so that you can see the failed step and a screenshot associated with it, so that you don't have to scroll through the whole thing. And also for results, you see if you have screenshots as well as the steps associated with it and whether they passed or failed. So I'll just, you can also download this results documentation, so that you can take a look at the results if required. If the business users want to take a look at it, they can do the same. So you look at just like your manual test cases, you have the steps and you have the status, whether it's passed or failed, and then you have all the screenshots associated with it to take a look at to see if everything looks good from your standpoint as well. So all this is going to be always available to you on the platform. You can just log into the platform and download the test results or test documentation at any point in time. Okay. The other thing that is critical for a success of an automation project is test data management. So thinking about automated test data management is also critical to make sure that your automation project is successful. Because if you don't have the right data, then you could have a lot of false negatives from a test standpoint. You don't know whether your test case failed because of data or if it's really an issue. And you also have to spend a lot of time during your quarterly patches to create the data that is needed. So we actually do automated test data management as part of the onboarding process itself, the first time when we onboard a customer, so that we know where the data is coming from, whether it's static data, whether it's dynamic data. If it is dynamic data, we actually run the reports and get the information as a pre-step and then feed it to the automated test case to make sure that there is no manual intervention when we are running the test. So all these decisions are made during the onboarding process so that it's all automated, it's all configured, it's all set up so that when we're executing it, we don't have any manual intervention required. We can also iterate through different flows. For example, if you're hiring different types of employees, then from an automation standpoint, it's still the same flow, but you're executing with different sets of data. So we can just feed the test case with different sets of data, whether by uploading an Excel or putting the data sets here. And we can iterate through it saying, I want to hire an employee with with these 20 different test sets. Right, so that brings a lot of efficiency for you in terms of executing the test with automation. Imagine doing that manually 20 times; it takes tremendous amount of time. But with automation, we can just trigger the test. It runs unmonitored, parallel executions are happening, and you should get the results in quite fast pace. I also talked about integrations. So we do have ability to automate all different types of integrations that you might have, both your inbound integrations, outbound integrations, whether it's your systems or third-party systems, whether it's file-based integrations, FTP-based integrations, any SQL-based integrations or APIs, we should be able to integrate it so that enables you to actually test the whole end-to-end process, not just your application itself. Right. So, these are certain aspects of the platform that provides you a lot of benefits when it comes to release validation. We provide this as an annual subscription, and you're paying for what you're consuming. So it's on test case basis. So you're just only subscribing and paying because you just have 4 times a year that you're dealing with this testing. So you could just enroll in the subscription, and we'll take care of doing the automated impact analysis, automated release validation, and make sure that everything is tested and ready to go for your production push. Right. So that's how the CloudTestr app platform as a service works. If there are particular questions, we could definitely answer later on. So how does this whole delivery model work for you? Right. So the way the delivery model works is, once we engage with the customer, we are going to review your implementation. We actually have a lot of pre-built test libraries already available for all the Oracle Cloud applications. So what we are trying to understand is, how have you implemented it? What are your personalizations and configurations? So we do that by reviewing either your test cases that you already have, or your SOPs, or your any configuration documents that you might have during the implementation. We use that, and we'll figure out what the scope for automation is for your implementation. Then we do the onboarding. It's a one-time onboarding process that is going to entail us configuring CloudTestr in your environment for your implementation. And then we'll do the testing to make sure everything looks good, and you sign off. That concludes the one-time onboarding process. After that, it's pretty much we can continuously test it, whether it's for quarterly patches, or if you do any continuous enhancements, personalize it more, add new features and things like that, we can test it on demand as well whenever you need. And we do that after onboarding process. Every time we have to test it, it's about 3 to 5 business days in which we can maintain and execute the test. Onboarding usually takes, like I said, about 4 to 6 weeks. So it's really not a lot of time. So with 19D coming in, we should be able to get customers up and running with automation before 19D, so that you can leverage automation for 19D as well. Right. So it's pretty fast, and it's from a cost standpoint, it's pretty minimal, because you're only subscribing and you're paying for what you're consuming. You're not paying for resources or licenses or tools or things like that. It's all inclusive, and the best part of it is you actually have access to the platform where you can take a look at the dashboards, you can download the results, you can download the documentation. Things that are important to you are always available to you in real time. So why look at automated release validation? So basically, like I said, we have automated proactive patch and change impact analysis. We have professionals supporting it. We have SMEs and practitioners that are continuously supporting this. You have all the historical data available to you. And last but not the least, it's all automated health check routines that we have in place that will identify not only the functional issues, but also your process slowdowns or security breakdowns are also found as part of the whole process. So from your standpoint, it's just like your SaaS application. You don't have to worry about anything. You just let us know when your test pod, what is your schedule of your releases that Oracle is pushing for you, and that's all we need. We'll take care of everything else. If you want to find more information on us, we are listed on Oracle Marketplace, or you could go to cloudtestr.com website, or you can visit us at Oracle Open World. We are at booth number 1900. You can stop by and we can go into much more details on how the platform works, the customers that we have today that are using CloudTestr, how Oracle recommends us. We can go into a lot more details on things to see how you can start taking advantage of automated release validation subscription services. So that's all I have to present. If there are questions, we could take now.
Yeah, Lavanya. We have one from Saurabh. He was asking, can you explain in detail about how CloudTestr helps in automating SIT and UAT phase during the implementation phase?
Sure. So during the implementation phase, the way we work is we work closely with your implementation partner. So we start early on. The recommendation is it would be good to get started while you are configuring the modules. While you are configuring the modules, we can also start configuring the automated test so that you can run the automated test during SIT phase itself. And same thing, you can actually run the test for UAT as well. So from a UAT standpoint, your users can focus more on the 10-20% that are more critical and they want to test it themselves. And the 80% of the scenarios that are going to be common, that are more coming from the cloud application itself, can be done through automation. That way, your implementation cycles are going to be shorter. And if there are any unplanned executions that come in play, for example, we had one of our customers who planned for 3 cycles of UAT during implementation, but after 2 rounds of UAT, they found an issue and they had to incorporate a new cycle of UAT. But since they had automation in place, they were able to complete the automation in a timely fashion, the execution in 3 to 5 business days, and were able to get through the testing much faster. Any other questions, Sagar?
Yeah, we have one more question. Thank you, Lavanya. Jane is asking about how faster is the validation procedure leveraging the CloudTestr platform when Oracle releases a patch.
So we can test it within 3 to 5 business days. There are some. It depends on the number of test cases. Also, we have customers where we were able to validate it in 1 or 2 days as well. So the maximum time we take is 5 business days, but it could be somewhere between 2 business days to 5 business days.
Okay, Lavanya. Thank you. I think that's all questions. Yeah.
I just saw something on the chat. Can you check?
Yeah. How is the customer data protected in? What is the measures that we take in handling the customer data?
Okay, that's a really good question. So obviously, since it's HR data or financials data or a lot of sensitive data that is involved, so basically we recommend customers to scramble the data, and we are not testing in the production environment. We are testing it in the test environment. So more often than not, the data that we are using, either it's scrambled data or we create a set of data that we're testing from a testing standpoint. But usually, to get the take best advantage of testing real scenarios, it would be our customers usually have the data scrambled when we're using it in the test environment.
Thank you, Lavanya. Any more questions you have here? Okay, Lavanya. I think.
Okay.
I think there's no questions here. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll share the recording and post it as well. So if you want to share it with your colleagues offline, you could do that as well.
Yeah. Thank you for taking your time out and joining in for our webinar. We'll have the recording placed on our website post event, and then you can access it and access the same, and also share it within your teams for the information. And you can always reach out to marketing@suneratech.com or Lavanya directly. So thank you all. You have a good day.